I mean, to which degree does Netanyahu represent the Israeli people? Is a real question.
To which point does Trump or Biden represent the American people?
So what percentage is that in your sense?
It's the people who have the power.
So it's mostly the focus. But, the reality of the situation, if we look at the religious slice of this.
Lex Fridman just got destroyed by Bassem Youssef, and the mask of neutrality was ripped off in front of everyone. Lex leaned on recycled lines about both sides, but Bassem came armed with dates, bodies, and a reality too brutal to dodge. The clash unfolded like a public reckoning, with double standards dragged into the light and stripped bare.
The Arab League.
What should Hamas do? What do you think we should Hamas do?
Lex leaned forward and tossed what sounded like a soft pitch. What should Hamas do? It felt simple until Bassem Youssef answered like a sledgehammer. No tiptoeing, no polite detours. He went straight to power. Israel holds the levers, backed by the most powerful country on earth. Talking about Hamas, without naming that imbalance, he said, was dishonest. Full stop.
And the role of the Israeli people is to vote out this right-wing government and elect a more moderate leader so that there's a chance at peace with two moderate leaders.
And Ariel Sharon kind of came up with this amazing policy of breaking people's kids' bones in the Intifada. So Baraki was also which one is moderate? I think is...
Lex tried the classic safe lane. Both sides need moderate leaders. Bassem snapped it in half. Which moderates Ariel Sharon, the man whose policy included breaking children's bones during the Intifada, Ehud Barak, who presided over brutal crackdowns? Dressing up violence as moderation doesn't make it moderate, it just makes it neat for TV. So are we talking about ideas, or are we finally talking about impact?
You have been put between you and those people that you have treated them this way. When this is a breach and you come face to face, you will come face to face with what you have created.
That's why this podcast hit harder than anything Lex Fridman had done before. It wasn't just another intellectual chat on philosophy or technology. This was April 5th, 2024, and it turned into one of the most intense confrontations Lex had ever faced on air. People tuned in expecting a soft-spoken back and forth, maybe some abstract talk about peace. Instead, they got the raw weight of reality dropped in their laps.
Amr Najjar, age 10, sitting next to his father, shot while he's sitting in a car next to his father by the IDF soldiers.
Bassem wouldn't let the conversation float above the ground. He brought names, families, the kind of details that pull you out of abstraction and drop you in the street. Dates from weeks earlier in 2024. Fresh grief, fresh headlines.
February 22nd, Fadi Suleiman killed while standing in front of the top of a Red Cross building. Nihil Ziad, February 14th, Valentine's Day, killed, shot in the head while leaving school. But the thing is, you see, this is how easy for them to get rid of Palestinians. I love,
Then the air changed. He spoke about February and March, children shot in cars, outside UN schools, in night raids, lives cut short before they even had a chance to begin. These weren't militants. They were kids who never made it home from class.
If you're talking about people who were kidnapped, Israel kidnaps people every single day. And when they had the first exchange on November 4th...
Bassem said it without decoration. Israel kidnaps people every day, kids in solitary. That's torture. There wasn't a philosophical angle that could pretty that up. When the truth lands like a brick, do we argue with the brick or the wall it exposes? Lex tried a reset. Maybe Palestinians overthrow Hamas, Israelis vote out the far right, and two moderates chart a path to peace. Bassem's reply was surgical. Which moderates? The ones with broken bones in their biographies.
A form of torture. And you're putting kids through that.
Then came the frame that locked the room. Hamas as product, not cause. Oppression breeds resistance. The same logic that makes sense in South Africa's apartheid history and in Nazi-occupied France. Bassem wasn't endorsing. He was explaining the physics of power and pressure.
So starvation is a thing we don't often think of it as murder.
By now, Lex looked like a man gripping a boat in a storm. Calm words, heavy waves. The set had turned into a courtroom, with Bassem cross-examining euphemisms and entering exhibits the audience couldn't unsee.
There's 1 in 4 kids that are imprisoned that stay in solitary confinement, which is by international law a form of torture. And you're putting kids through that. 1.7 million people of the people in Gaza don't belong in Gaza. They were pushed from other places.
Now we have to talk about Gaza, the way people avoid talking about Gaza. It isn't a random strip where families gathered for fun. It's a refugee camp that hardened into a cage. About 1.7 million Gazans aren't originally from Gaza. Their families were pushed out in 1948 and never allowed to return. If a place is built on forced displacement, how long can we keep calling it temporary?
Dr. Helmi, he was in this hospital and the Nazis came in and they killed and tortured and beat up the Jewish doctor, and they made him the head of his department.
Just when you think you've got the mood pegged, statistics, sorrow, stalemate, Bassem pulls a historical lever that flips the lights. He tells the story of Dr. Muhammad Helmi, an Egyptian doctor in Berlin during the Nazi era. When the Gestapo hunted Jews, Helmi hid a Jewish girl and called her his niece for 7 years.
Then now he is surrounded by Nazi doctors. They didn't touch him because he was an Arab.
The detail that shocks you: the Nazis didn't lay a hand on him because he was Arab. They wanted goodwill in the Arab world. Helmi used that racist blind spot against them. He built a network, saved lives, and proved that solidarity isn't a myth, it's a muscle.
And this is why what Biden said was very dangerous when he said, if there's no Israel, no Jew in the world will feel safe.
And then, as if the episode needed more heavy punches, Bassem takes on the President of the United States. Joe Biden had said, without Israel, no Jew will feel safe anywhere. On the surface, it might sound like support, but Bassem dissected it like a surgeon. He called it out for what it was: dangerous nonsense.
Country in the United States of America are not safe. That is wrong on 2 levels. Number 1, America historically and right now is more safe to Jews in America in the world than more than anybody. They are safer than the Jews in Israel.
Because the truth is, Jews have historically been far safer in America than in Israel. There was no Holocaust in the US, no pogroms like in Europe, no systematic persecution on that scale. American Jews live, work, and thrive in one of the safest environments for Jews in history.
Second of all, if you're the president and you're telling that a group of people will not feel safe unless there's a different one, you are already feeding into their 5th column.
So when Biden says they'd all be unsafe without Israel, what does that imply? That Jews in America are somehow foreign, that they need another country to protect them? That's not comfort. That's a threat wrapped in a promise. It feeds the very idea that Jews don't belong in their own countries, that their loyalty lies elsewhere. And history has shown how dangerous that idea can be. It's the same language nationalist dictators use when they talk about protecting their people abroad.
What would a Jewish person in Beverly Hills or in Brooklyn feel if he hears that? You are already telling people you need to be loyal to Israel.
Bassem put it bluntly: what does a Jewish kid in Brooklyn feel when he hears the president say something like that? Suddenly, he's not just an American kid anymore. He's being told he only belongs because another state exists across the world. That's not reassurance, that's exile by another name. And once again, Lex had no comeback. No clever philosophy, no neutral framing, just nods, hesitation, the kind of silence that fills the space when someone has been completely out-argued.
Israel warns civilians before bombing them. And that's okay. But that's not okay.
Bassem's style was unforgettable. He didn't get lost in intellectual fog. He didn't let jargon or vague words do the heavy lifting. He was sharp, direct, but also deeply human. That combination, receipts plus moral clarity cut through like a knife.
So when you tell me what would you do if Israel would do, it really we need to ask, how does Israel look at the Palestinian and view the Palestinians, because they do look at them less than human. And there is an incredible talk. The Palestinians have been microdosing on it for a very long time. Little by little, little by little. And we would shout every time when it gets too much, and then we shut down, and then little by little. But this time it was hard.
But here's the bigger point. This episode wasn't really about Lex or even Bassem. It was about something larger, the fight between truth and polite distraction. Lex represented the comfortable middle, safe words, safe ideas, the illusion that if we just balance the conversation, maybe the pain will go away. But Bassem's presence made one thing clear: that middle is part of the problem. Because when you balance between occupier and occupied, between jailer and prisoner, you're not neutral. You're leaning on the side of power.
The Great Leap Forward by Mao.
Yep.
So starvation is a thing we don't often think of it as murder.
That's why this debate mattered. It wasn't just an internet drama. It gave voice to the silenced. Palestinians, refugees, kids growing up behind walls and barbed wire. Bassem dragged their stories into a space that usually avoids them. He forced the audience to sit with the discomfort, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.